And sports aren't just a game, they're a way of life. And now we've got a show dedicated to die-hard sports fans like you. Hosted by a guy who's borderline obsessed with the wins and losses of all your favorite teams.
He's crazy.
Every weekday morning from 9 to noon, Ben Bosscher brings you the talk that matters. The teams, the stories, and the players you care about most. This is the Ben Bosscher Show, built by Bresky Siding and Building Repair.
Remember that.
Hello, and welcome into the Ben Bosscher Show with no Ben Bosscher. It's the Kyle Sandel Show today, joined by Brad Tutty making his return to the show on this Thursday. We're talking Tigers today. It's been a weird week with this Tigers-Angels series, and boy, last night's game just kind of added into that odd week that we've had so far, coming off of Memorial Day. They finally get a win, and it was an awesome pitching performance from the Tigers last night. Just 2 hits given up. Casey Mize was awesome while he was in the game. Drew Anderson actually comes in and pitches pretty well for the Tigers for the first time in quite a while, and they closed it out. Kenley Jansen, when he was in, was about to close it out, and that's kind of the point we're getting at here, is the caveat that comes with the Tigers finally picking up a win against what was the worst team in baseball in the LA Angels. They've been kind of trading back and forth this week. 2 Tigers pitchers go down with injuries in this game. The season from hell continues. Casey Mize goes 4 innings, giving up just the 2 hits. He was spectacular, getting so much swing and miss with that splitter. His sinker was honestly looking the best it's looked all season long, and yet a little bit of discomfort happens at the end of the 4th. He leaves with a groin injury. Just a big And it felt like the Tigers were probably going to blow this game. Luckily, they didn't, and it was nice to see Drew Anderson have a good outing, but it comes with Casey Mize, who's having probably an all-star season if he's not injured, getting injured again. And then you fast forward to the end of this game, and Kenley Jansen comes in. It's like, okay, he's got a chance to make up for giving up the walk-off home run against Baltimore this weekend, and he gets injured with 2 outs. He slipped on the mound a couple of times with his extended foot, and the first time they came out, checked on him, and he was like, I'm fine. He threw a couple pitches. He was good. And then like 2 pitches later, he realized, no, I'm not fine, and he leaves the game. Tigers do get the win, but they lose Casey Mize and Kenley Jansen to just add to the long, long list of Tarek Skubal, Gleyber Torres, Javi Baez, Kerry Carpenter, Parker Meadows. We can go on and on, all the injuries that they have. And I think it's easy to look at the Tigers' position right now at the bottom of the AL Central, at the bottom of the American League in general, and look at the injured list and blame it on the injuries. It's very easy to do that. And I can't necessarily blame you, just because this is the season from hell, and it's gotten worse ever since Tarek Skubal went down. It felt like the dominoes continued to fall and fall. I'm not going to do that, though. I do not think the injuries are to blame for the Tigers season that they have had here in 2026, and I think they have put it out right in front of us as to why not. This team at their best this season, because, we talk about, well, once they get healthy, they potentially could win the AL Central. We thought this was a World Series team coming into the year. Their best spot of the year is when they were 14-12. They were just 2 games above 500. That came off of a series win against the Milwaukee Brewers on April 23rd. 14-12, fully healthy. That was with Tarek Skubal, with Casey Mize, Gleyber, Javi, Kerry, all the guys that I just listed off. All of them were playing and healthy. Now, I understand you could say, well, that's a small sample size. 14-12, it's only 26 games into the year, and 14-12 might be good enough to win you the AL Central. Well, one, I think the Tigers had kind of moved past that expectation, right, of winning the AL Central. Yeah, they haven't done it yet, but we're looking to go further than that. They've won a playoff series each of the last 2 years. They're trying to extend it to get to a championship series, World Series. We had 90-plus wins, World Series circled for this team coming into the year. How could you not, looking at the roster? So that sample size, sure, maybe they could have continued to improve more and more if the injuries didn't come. But I'm looking at the grand scheme of things, because all of those players that I've just named off that are on the injured list, that were supposed to be playing, that aren't the Zach Shorts, all those other terrible players that are getting run for the Tigers right now, Wenzel Perez, etc., all of those guys were on this team last year. They were on the 2025 Tigers. And what did the 2025 Tigers do? They crumbled. If you extend that sample size Let's go all the way back over a half a year. 87 games. The Tigers' last 87 games. 31-56. Team was 25 games below 500 in their last 87 games. You want to make it even further? Let's go to in between a half and full season. 125 games. They're 50-75. I understand that the injuries are easy to point to right now if you want to complain about how the Tigers season has gone. That's fair because it obviously, I'm not going to sit here and say it doesn't play a role. 100% it does. The second Tarek Skubal went down is when things really started to spiral out of control. But I think it's not a fluke. The injuries aren't the flukiness. I think the real flukiness was how the Tigers started last season. Because all of those players that had all-star seasons are just returning to what they are as career players right now. Zach McKinstry is the number one guy you point to in this stat. You know, he was a Tigers all-star last year. Yes, he filled in with, like, he wasn't a real all-star, but he was an all-star. So sure, we'll give it to him. The utility all-stars, whatever they called it. In his last 100 games, though, because that goes back to July 1st of last year, after the all-stars were announced. He has a 578 OPS in 300 at-bats. Right now is an everyday player, and you would expect him to be an everyday player because he was an all-star last year for the Tigers. Spencer Torkelson, his last 80 games, a 224 batting average with a 700 OPS. Good job for Tork last night, though. 3 extra base hits. He did this earlier this year, by the way, when he had 5 straight games with a homer and then returned to being what we know Spencer Torkelson as, which is a below-average to bad first baseman. I can go on and on. Colt Keith, his last 80 games, Javi Baez, all these guys that were supposed to be a part of the Tigers core have disappointed, not just this year, across the back end of last year and going into this year. So I understand that why we had the expectation of coming into this year, the Tigers should be a World Series team because they went to a playoff series, or they won a playoff series last year, went to a Game 5 of the divisional against Seattle, and lost in 15 innings. Like, clearly, and then they add Framber Valdez, a good add. Kevin McGonigal's added this team, and he has been amazing. I mean, he had another great game last night. But the issue is, all of the guys that you felt great about going into this year based off of the years they had in 2025, they fooled you. The Tigers as a whole have fooled you. They have been bad for almost a year at this point. Since July of last year. Last 125 games, 50-75. So that to me is why I am not saying the fluke is what has happened this year with the injuries. No, the real fluke is what happened at the beginning of last year when the Tigers overperformed and fooled all of us to think that they were a real baseball team that could compete for a World Series. Because they clearly can't. And there's been some fans that have had optimism this week, you know, going into the Angels series. You look at the schedule coming up. Oh, it's the Angels. It's the White Sox. They have it pretty light going into the Tampa series when you can get some of these guys back. Tarek Skubal's making good progress. Justin Verlander has only pitched in 1 game this year. He's making some good progress. I understand all of that. But there is a big enough sample size to prove that the Tigers are not a World Series contending team with or without the guys that are on the injured list. It's tough to face reality with that because the easiest thing as a fan to do is blame something else that has nothing to do with the product on the field. One, the refs, of course, is the number one thing that fans will point to, but injuries as well. And this is a great time to make that excuse because of the amount of injuries that they have. I won't do it because even at full strength, this team was 2 games above 500 this year, and at full strength last year, they were well below 500. Do you feel the same way? Let us know. 989-837-6125. Brad is producing today. Brad, What's going on, man?
What up?
How are you feeling?
Can you hear me all right?
Oh, of course I can hear you all right. Is everything going good back there with the iPad?
Yeah, it's going all right.
Better than John probably would be.
Yeah. Well, it's the year of John, though.
It is the year of John, yes. Loon's playing Dayton this week. He's down there. You can listen on the Mitt later today. Okay, Brad, so, I mean, you've heard me and Ben talking, demise about the Tigers all season long. Where are you at with this Tigers squad?
Oh, the revisionist history, Kyle. I can't believe this is what you came into the show with today, knowing that I would be here to hopefully prove you wrong.
I had to. This is how I feel, though. Like, this is truly how I feel.
I get it. Like, I had been a Tigers pessimist for the last 2 or 3 years. Wasn't a firm believer in the late season surge 2 years ago. It felt like the late season collapse a year ago was more of who the organization was. I've never been a firm believer in Scott Harris, obviously not a firm believer in ownership. I do think what you're doing right now is a little bit of revisionist history, though. And, like, look, who got it wrong coming into the year then? Like, every single sports book, every single national media partner. This is a Tigers team that had the 8th best preseason odds to win the World Series. They were favorites, like even money odds, favorites in the AL Central. They had an over-under of 86 wins, which had good juice on an over. They had won 85, 86 games each of the last 2 years with basically the same roster, plus Kevin McGonigal and Framber Valdez and additional help, including a Hall of Famer as a closer and Kenley Jansen coming in. I think it's a little tough to come out and say that this is more of the first half team from 2 years ago than it is the current team we're seeing, or that they're the same group. It's a little revisionist history. But the talent of each individual player is probably not anything to prove an example of. Zach McKinstry, not a heralded prospect, unfortunately reverts back to the mean. Colt Keith, who last year was a 746 OPS, now down to 683. Is that who he probably actually is? Probably.
Zero home runs still.
Yeah, zero home runs. Is Spencer Torkelson more of who he was last year, a 790 OPS, or his career of about 715 and this year 680? Probably. Like, I think the talent of the individual players is who they are, but I also think it's a circumstance of an organization as a roster that has grown tired, or at least fallen on deaf ears of a coaching staff that has probably overstayed its welcome, of a front office that has overstayed its welcome. It screams of an organization that needs change, not necessarily one that is like proving that every single player on the team is actually reverting back to the mean of being worse than they were a season ago, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, and you're right. Like, pointing out each individual guy it's not really going to help the grand scheme of things, but my point stands that even if this team was fully healthy currently, like, were they playing like a World Series contending team that we all thought they were preseason? They weren't.
Sure, but again, 8th best odds to win the World Series, favorites in the AL Central. The write-ups preseason, I think the evaluations from all of us preseason were if they can just hit, right? Like if they can just hit, they will, have a chance to win the pennant. If they can just hit. And unfortunately, they're not hitting, and they're not hitting across the board other than Kevin and Riley, who's probably performing at expectation, but they have no one performing above expectation, and you need a guy to make a leap. Like, you can't have just the top 2 players on your roster performing at expectation, everyone else below. There needs to be some leaps made, and maybe Kevin is the guy who has made the leap. Maybe you figure Riley Green wasn't going to be this strong offensively in the midst of a terrible lineup. Sure, I think this is about what he is, which is what you should expect from him. But like McKinstry being a 710 OPS last year, being a 670 career OPS, and now being in the 4s, that's hard to swallow. And it's also probably not who he is. Is he a 4s, like a mid 400 OPS the rest of his life? Probably not. Is Wencel Perez a mid 4s OPS the rest of his life when his career's been a 710 in the first 2 years he's been in here?
Add in the fact that he's the worst defender in baseball.
Sure, but like a 300-point difference in his OPS is you go from a guy who is at least average to slightly below average to being unplayable. And when you have holes in your lineup in baseball, especially in April and May and June, like those unfortunately stand out more than others. Like even Carey, like we know he's a platooner, doesn't play every day, he's got his flaws, right? But like last year was a 790 OPS, a career 820. This year it's 750. Like even a 70-point drop for guys like that you can rely on half the days. I think Kenley is another prime example. Like yesterday,
right? I
was like, look, Kenley, you expected to be way more, and Ben was like, well, he wasn't that good. It's like, no, Kenley was still pretty damn good last year. Like
he was great last year.
His
the
career
other team,
2.6 ERA, like has never had an ERA above 3.5. His last 3 years, it's been 3. You don't expect that guy to have a 5 ERA.
Both the closers, Finnegan and Vest, were better last year too. Like,
correct. It's like across the board, everyone is performing under expectation, which to me it reeks of an org that has lost its footing from a messaging, from a motivation, and from a development standpoint, across from the top down, from ownership to management to a front office that at times just needs a massive change. Because I think the players are intact mostly in a diluted division. I think that's what we get wrong sometimes. Is like, oh, the team like needs to be completely blown up. It's like, well, yes, because that's the cycle of Major League Baseball. When you have a roster like this that you know is not going to make the playoffs, probably, like you've got to go get prospects. But there are still good players on the roster.
Yeah, I mean, they've proven that this year. Like you said, Riley Green having a great year. The addition of Kevin McGonigal was probably the reason why. I mean, not probably. It was the reason why I was so confident in the Tigers coming into this year, because you added potentially your best overall hitter to a team that won a playoff series last year. So all of that is fair. But I think to what you're saying, last night was the perfect example of how the Tigers season is going, and just everyone underperforming this and that. Even when they get a win, it comes with 2 losses, with Kenley Jansen and Casey Mize. And Mize, who has been probably one of the 5 season-long positives for the Tigers this season, him going down again, and it didn't seem like anything serious. We don't know for sure, how long this is going to be. But if this results in another IL stint, it's the same injury that put him on the IL the first time around. Like that, how can you have any confidence in this group going forward?
I just don't know how you compete. And like the other part of this is a flaw in the operation of Scott Harris and Chris Ilitch, in that they didn't really give themselves a fair shot to the last 3 years when they kind of had a shot. And then you go kind of all in, at least in their perspective. You become a top 10-ish payroll team. You make another major signing next to Skubal. Like you do the legacy play with Verlander. You go get your closer. You promote your top prospect. Like you kind of go all in for their mid-market purposes. And then you just get faced with some bad luck. And I think that's tough for a fan base to swallow, as you mentioned. Like you want to scapegoat other things. But in this, what has been a 3 to 4 year window, they only really gave themselves a fair shot one time. It was this year, and they caught the raw end of the deal. And is part of that due to Chris Fetter? Is part of that due to other parts of the organization? Sure. But I just don't know how you compete even in one of the worst divisions in history with a starting rotation that coming into the year, remember, MLB.com, every publication had as a top 5 not only starting rotation but overall staff, like inclusive of the bullpen.
100%.
That was a unanimous and consensus opinion that this was a top 5 pitching staff. I don't know how you compete when you're down 4 of those 5 starters, and the 5th one in Jack Flaherty is a zombie, and then Kenley Jansen goes from Hall of Fame pitcher to bozo, and on top of that, Will Vest is a shell of himself too. So like there are just deep-rooted organizational issues. In the 1 year, really, you gave yourself a chance. And I think that's just a tough pill to swallow as a fan base, and then you end up scapegoating things.
Yeah, which has resulted into a lot of people complaining about the injuries, which is a valid complaint, like Brad just laid out. I'm not going to sit here and yell at the fans that are upset about everybody getting injured, because it clearly is frustrating. I just think that, to Brad's point and to mine, there are clearly other things going on that have been pointed out to us that this all-in season that the Tigers have orchestrated clearly is going to end up being a failure. 989-837-6125. Let us know. What do you think about this Tigers future with this team right now? Because last night felt like the perfect example of, even when they have an opportunity to pull out a victory in a game and close in this losing streak and this just terrible stretch of baseball that they've had since Tarek Skubal has gone down, it results in one of your better players in Casey Mize getting injured. And even Kenley Jansen, who, yes, we were frustrated with Kenley Jansen, no doubt about it. You still don't want that guy getting injured. So let us know, 989-837-6125. You can hit us up in the YouTube chat as well. We're live on YouTube and Facebook. Just search 100.9 The Mid if you're listening on the radio side. 9 o'clock hour is brought to you by Iron Stack Technologies. They help businesses solve real technology problems securely, efficiently, and without the headaches. When your IT is working the way it should, everything else gets easier. Iron Stack Technology, solution-driven, mission-focused. You can find them online at ironstacktechnology.com. All right, welcome back in. Ben Bosscher Show. No Ben Bosscher. It's Kyle and Brad today here live on 100.9 The Mitt. We're on YouTube and Facebook as well.
Yeah.
Dane getting in on the Facebook. He says, it seems the entirety of the Tigers fan base and the media, whether it's sports writers or sports talk hosts, knew the Tigers needed to improve the lineup this past offseason. Everyone except for Scott Harris knew the lineup is anything but a legitimate major league starting lineup, injuries notwithstanding. I mean, that's one thing that we didn't really point out. You know, coming into the season, we had talked time and time again how Brad mentioned about how great the starting rotation was. A lot of people had it as the second best in the American League right behind Boston. Some people even had it over Boston. And as a pitching staff as a whole, you have the three-headed monster in the bullpen with Jansen, Vest, Finnegan. The lineup was only improved by adding Kevin McGonigal, which is a pretty good improvement. Like, I'm not going to sit here and act like, oh, only Kevin McGonigal. McGonigal is great, and he has been the Tigers' probably still best overall hitter. You know, last night he just puts together great at-bats time and time again, and you can't really get that out of a guy that is as young as he is. But there was no bats added to this lineup. And right now, it's easy to say that now with everybody injured, but when you have Zach Short and Wenzel Perez and Zach McKinstry and Matt Vierling, Hao-Yu Lee, all these guys that are hitting like 200 or lower in this lineup right now, yeah, it would have been easy to go back and say, well, they should have added a bat in the offseason.
For sure. Again, are they going to be able to hit enough to take the next step for this offense? I think, but unfortunately, the front office and ownership, you make a bet in Major League Baseball in particular when it's fairly profitable to be middling. It's a conversation we'll have related to the CBA negotiations that started yesterday with the MLBPA that we'll have shortly here. But you make a bet as an organization that, like, can we be good enough while not spending too much? And it sucks that the conversation related to baseball teams in particular always comes to this. It's why there's going to be potentially a work stoppage going into next year, because a fan base can constantly look at a baseball team and say, hey, it's not good enough. We could have just spent more money. Like in a non-cap sport, that's unfortunately where the conversation can go every time. The cap or the spending can be a scapegoat for every single issue. But I think it's a fair one with this team when this was the first year they decided to do it. And the infrastructure beneath that spending was not good enough beyond Kevin McGonigal or potentially Max Anderson or whoever else that could buoy this roster moving forward. I think, again, the bet was we're going to pitch our way into a division title, and then when we get to the postseason, those 3 to 4 arms, Valdez, Skubal, Verlander, Mize, Melton, whoever it is, there will be 3 to 4 of them that can buoy us to potentially a pennant in what has become a very weak AL. There's like 3 teams in the AL, right?
The American League stinks this
year. There's like 3 teams, and really none of them are in your division. Maybe Cleveland.
Yeah, like
late.
Somehow the West is worse than the Central right now.
Yeah.
It's a joke over there.
Yeah. So, like, could you do enough? And I think on paper, we all thought it was enough coming into the year. When you factor in the addition of Kevin McGonigal, if you would have told me you were getting an 850 OPS season from Riley Green, sure. I think it's a tough bet to make on a roster that already seemed pretty thin and limped into the finish a year ago, mind you, which is what you keep kind of bringing up here. It's a tough bet to make to say we're going to win every game 4-3 and have a really low margin of error. Like, and then all of a sudden that margin of error hits with injuries, and now you've got no fallback plan. There's no buoys in the farm system to fall back on. There's no major signing that's going to buoy you. And I know a lot of apologists for this front office and this ownership point to like Eugenio Suarez and Alex Bregman and the years that they're having, which like for Suarez is, maybe the worst year of his career to start the season while dealing with injuries. And for Bregman, it's been basically replacement level, maybe a little better. But like I still think that's not the fault of a fan base to go, hey, these are the 2 biggest names available. They didn't go out and get them, because at a certain point, your front office has got to be smarter than your fan base. There's got to be fines from your front office that the fan base goes, I don't know about that, and then it hits. Unfortunately, there's not many of those, if any, for this front office.
And maybe McGonigal's the one. He wasn't a true first-round draft pick.
Right.
He was a competitive bounce-round pick, and he's turned into a superstar. So that's kind of the one thing that Scott Harris can ride on, and it's what Ben continues to bring up. Like, it's the only reason why he isn't blaming Harris over Hinch for what has been the Tigers' demise this season, which I kind of disagree with. I don't necessarily know what A.J. Hinch is supposed to do, with the roster that's put out there on a day-to-day basis. And to your point, I mean, if they were willing to spend this offseason not spending a dime on the offense, feels like an issue when last year, I mean, it's hard to get the taste out of your mouth from what happened last year. Specifically in the final game of the season last year, when you went to the 15th inning and all you needed was one damn run to win a game and go to the championship series. You just needed one. You needed a base hit with a guy on second in 6 different opportunities in extra innings, and you didn't get one, and yet nobody was added in the offseason. That's, I think, why I'm most frustrated with. I was blinded this offseason by their spending, and I forgot about what happened at the end of last year, and not just the playoff series, but the whole entire back half of last year. And that's why I'll continue to harp on this team is 50-75 in their last 125 games. So it's not a shock to me that they're in the spot that they are right now, despite all of the injuries. Jared kind of implementing what you're saying in our YouTube chat, Brad. He says, they might score a few runs once a week, but every other game is played on a slim margins, praying that the pitching will be hot. It sucks.
Yeah, again, and that's the bet that seemingly the front office and ownership made. It's like, can we spend just enough on one side of the ball to buoy the other side and then rely on what had probably been above expectation, above water level performances for a lot of guys last year? Wenzel, Carey, Zach, Javier, Glaber, like up and down, they probably outperformed. I'll still say on paper coming into the season, it was a bet that most of the fans were comfortable with, especially after the Fromber signing.
Right.
The Verlander return, Kenley Jansen brought in, and then you get hit with the bug. Like, I think the conversation around Hinch and Harris is a really interesting one, and I don't know where you guys have had conversation on this over the last few days or weeks. And I've seen some rumblings, like just on Reddit and Twitter and Tiger fan stuff of like, well, it's clearly a Scott Harris issue, which I know John here at the station like always points to a Scott Harris issue actually being a Chris Illis issue, that the deck is not stacked well enough for your president of baseball operations, which I think there's some truth to that.
Sure. Again,
this has been like a 3 to 4 year window that Chris Illich has really only signed off on an opportunity for you to really compete one time. It was this year. I guess I struggle with the concept because I think this is a good way of looking at it in that if you fired A.J. Hinch today, would there be suitors around Major League Baseball for him? And if you fired Scott Harris today, would there be suitors around Major League Baseball for him? And I think the conventional wisdom would tell you, well, yeah, like there'd be 5 teams who would fire their manager right now for A.J. Hinch.
Yeah, he'd be the manager of the Mets in an instant.
I just don't know if that's true.
Of A.J. Hinch, you don't think so?
I don't know. Like, the full resume of A.J. Hinch is now half of that resume, half of that Wikipedia page, basically, is this Tiger stint that for the most part has been kind of underwhelming and now is in like, we're a couple of months away from like total flameout territory. That like, it's worse now than when he got here. And the Astros, like, again, I don't want to diminish a World Series title. That is clearly a major accomplishment. And over 6 years, getting 300-win seasons, 2 pennants, and a World Series title that they, like, I think we're all acknowledging, very much cheated to win.
Of course. I think everyone acknowledges that.
Yeah, like, so in a 15-year stretch of managerial experience, or 12-year stretch, whatever the total is for him, 2 pennants is pretty solid. For an organization that then had Dusty Baker also win multiple pennants with. Like,
and continue their success on and on up until last season. Yeah,
up until
the first time they missed the playoffs.
Correct. So I think conventional wisdom would tell you, yes, if you let go of A.J. Hinch right now, there would be half a dozen suitors. I don't fully believe that. I do know for a fact that if you let go of Scott Harris, he's not landing an equal level role anywhere in the bigs right now. Like, that for sure is factual.
Right.
But I just don't know if it's completely true on the Hinch side of things that make this like a very easy decision that like Harris is exclusively the issue related to A.J. Hinch. I think when you are flaming out like this as a team that has made the playoffs in consecutive years, I think there's like a major windfall of errors from top to bottom in conjunction with some bad luck that might just need a full reversal of feng shui in essence.
I think we're about 2 months away from getting that. Because the Tigers have a lot of valuable assets that I think will be available at the deadline. Of course, Casey Mize, who gets injured last night, is going to be one of them.
2 months is crazy, though. Like,
it's crazy to think it's 2 months from now.
Like, y'all have crashed out multiple times already. Like, how many times can you live with this team for 2 more months?
Right. And that's why
I don't know.
And maybe it seems wrong to do
It's
this.
a long time.
It feels like that's why I have already accepted defeat on this year, whereas like I don't even want to get my hopes up. I don't even really want to feel hopeful anymore because that's me getting drawn back in. And then that's me allowing myself to, when they get swept by the next worst team in baseball, to get that same feeling again. Whereas if I accept it, then I can just deal with it. Let us know, 989-837-6125. Is it A.J. Hinch? Is it Scott Harris? Who is really to blame right now for everything that's going on? Because it is a pretty good conversation to have. All right, coming up, we are going to get to the news. Brad is going to be put to the test.
Ooh.
John usually does a pretty bad job with this.
Oh, wow.
We'll see if Brad can have any improvement there. This show, as always, is brought to you by Bresky Siding and Building Repair. Protect your home with Bresky Siding and Building Repair, the experts who do the job right the first time. Got a leaky roof, storm damage, siding looking a little tired? Bresky has got you covered. Locally owned, trusted, and dedicated to keeping Midland area homes safe and looking sharp. Quality materials, skilled craftsmanship, and service that puts your family first. Don't wait for the next storm. Call Bresky Siding and Building Repair today and keep your home strong for years to come. Hey, the weather's getting nicer out. We're gearing up for summer. So to help you do that, head over to Ace Hardware and Sports here in downtown Midland. Locally owned and proudly family operated. Ace Hardware in downtown Midland is your go-to spot as we gear up for summer. Stop in on East Main Street in the heart of downtown Midland, helping you get ready for the season ahead while supporting your community. All right, it's time for the Mitt Morning Catch. Yep.
Hold on. That was a quick turnaround.
I was waiting for it.
Yep.
There we go.
The Mitt's Morning Catch.
All right, Brad. Now's your time to shine. This sound is a little bit louder, by the way. Just want to give you some advice there.
Hold on.
Ben always yells at me for having it too loud.
Oh, how do I end up on the left side of the screen? Right now I'm on the right side of the screen.
Well, you're supposed to be on the right side of the screen. Oh, you want to be on the left side. You got to touch your side, your screen first, then mine. You know what I mean?
Hey,
there we go.
All right.
Yeah, I think you figured it out, folks.
Figured it out.
John's in the lead right now, by the way, for smoothness of transitioning
Really?
to the news. I mean, we're still not even in it.
Yeah, but that's the joy of it. All right, mid-morning catch time. Let's start things off with the Bresky building repair community calendar. Today I've got a look at the Chippewa Nature Center, our friends over there, with a native plant sale this weekend. It's always an exciting time. My wife and I have a native plant garden in our backyard, Kyle.
Okay.
And so they have a native plant sale this weekend. It's like an annual or biannual thing they do over there at the CNC. Members only tomorrow from 1 to 6, and then the public available for the native plant sale from 9 to 4 on Saturday. That's our Bresky Siding and Building Repair community calendar look.
You going to go check it out?
To our friends at Max Loves Midland. Am I going to go check it out? Yes. Saturday's an open day for me. We usually try to get down there, over there, and we could do some native plant.
Jacob giving you a shout out. He says that Pistons shirt is fire.
Thank you, brother.
We're going to talk some Pistons to start the 10 o'clock hour.
Yeah, a little bit. Also, how about in the news today, Kirk Gibson's birthday. Happy birthday, Kirk Gibson.
Happy birthday.
69th birthday to Kirk Gibson.
I wonder what he feels about this year's Tigers team.
Jeremy Fears withdrawing from the 2026 draft and returning to MSU for his senior season. Kyle, this is big news for you.
Yeah, this is big news, and it didn't come till almost 11 p.m. last night. This would have been an auto lead of the show if Jeremy Fears decided to stay in the draft. Because
an auto lead, yep.
It would have been an auto lead because Fears is going to be he was an All-American last year. He's going to be probably the Big Ten Player of the Year preseason player. He's going to be a Naismith Player of the Year contender preseason. And next year is Michigan State's best roster post-COVID for Tom Izzo. And so this is their best chance to win. They have an amazing freshman class coming in. Without Jeremy Fears, it would have been over. I would have written the season off already. So very happy that Jeremy Fears is back.
So Fears, Cohen Carr, and a big freshman class. Am I missing anyone there of like high-end contributors?
That's essentially it. You lose Jackson Kohler, Carson Cooper. Those are the big losses, but you're adding the best class that they've had since the Fears class that came in. And so, yeah, an elite freshman class is going to have two guys that are contributing at a very high level right away.
Highly concerned this microphone is about to fall, as it just did.
Yep. Just hang on to it.
Yep. Folks didn't catch the conversation from earlier. Just a quick update on the Tigers. 4-0 win yesterday. They split that series against the Angels so far. They're at 110 today with Jack Flaherty starting on the mound. Yesterday, though, despite the Mize injury, the Jansen injury, those two plus Anderson, Finnegan, Hannafy combined for a 2-hitter, torque homer, 3 extra base hits. All good news on the surface and in a vacuum for the Tigers, but as we just went through over the first half an hour, still a lot of concerning items, including the 2 injuries, which is a part of our Covenant Healthcare orthopedic and sports medicine injury report. Tarek Skubal, Casey Mize, not Skubal, but Mize and Kenley Jansen both down yesterday.
Groin injuries for both of them.
Yeah.
And obviously the most concerning part is that this was the same injury that put Mize on the injured list beforehand. And so that is very concerning. or if he's going to get another IL stint or not. And if he does, it's probably going to be something extended. So we'll keep you updated with that.
Let's see where I want to go here on this one. What am I saving for the second mitt?
It's your call. You're in control.
I am. Let's do... You know what? Let's dive into something here. Major League Baseball Players Association made their first formal proposal in CBA talks with Major League Baseball yesterday. Kind of the nuts and bolts of this, Kyle, that the players are asking for, which, by the way, the CBA is up in December? And so they need to have something figured out by then at the end of the year. Basically, a competitive integrity tax for any team that does not spend $150 million. So that is a salary floor. That is the number one key for the players' side of this negotiation, is that they want a floor that obviously raises the salaries of the bottom of the teams. It forces owners to spend more. The flip side of that is the owners will be likely countering or putting together their first proposal today. They want a salary cap. So they want a limit on what owners can spend. Players want a floor on what owners can spend. That is the crux of the negotiation amongst a bunch of other items. Players want an increase in the minimum salary from about $750,000 to about $1.5 million. The reporting is that it likely will land somewhere in between those two. They want an increase in the base competitive balance tax threshold, which would be like a hard cap in essence. They want an increase on that. And then a change in the revenue sharing system the players are desiring right now, which I think most educated baseball fans want too. Right now, the revenue sharing of gate revenue or tickets or in-stadium revenue, I guess broadly, is shared probably too much amongst the teams, which then incentivizes teams to not really care too much about their in-stadium product, ticket prices, food prices, things like that. If that is shared less, it will incentivize those teams to care more about the product they're putting together in park. That's what players are desiring, so that's another piece of this. And then the small other part of it is that players want service time to be after 5 years to reach free agency for players that are 30 or older. And so there's a lot of like little details here. The biggest crux of all of this is players want a salary floor, owners want a salary cap.
Quite the opposite things that each side is going for.
Yes, and depending on the propaganda that you're listening to from either side of this, I think conventional wisdom would tell you that the salary cap is better for competitive balance, essentially capping the Dodgers. Rob Manfred came out yesterday in response to this already and stated and used the Dodgers as an example, like broadly stating we have to do something about the Dodgers. Yes, it is. But what they don't realize, I think, and what most fans will tell you, is that the issue is not really the Dodgers. It's that the Marlins are allowed to spend $60 million.
It's that the Guardians won the division the last 2 years by spending bottom five in baseball.
Yes, it's that the Guardians are allowed to spend $80 million. The White Sox are allowed to spend less money, while their owners make money hand over foot. Are netting $100 million a year beyond the inflation of their evaluations of their baseball clubs. So, we'll see. I mean, the last time something like this took place was in the mid-'90s. It led to a work stoppage. That was the last time a salary cap was proposed. The World Series was canceled infamously that year. Hopefully it doesn't get to that point.
Yeah, and it's nice that at least they're getting out ahead of this now, but also, is this getting out ahead of it? Because we are 2 months into the season at this point, and this is expiring this offseason. So it feels like maybe this should have started a while back. Nonetheless, it's better to get it now than in like July or September when it's really too late.
It would have been nice 2 years ago, right? They've had 5 years to negotiate.
Yeah, and 2 years ago they tried to do it before the season, and the players said, "Hey, we're gonna sit out if we don't get this figured out." And they're like, "Let's just figure it out 2 years from now," which is pretty frustrating. And now we're at that point. So hopefully baseball doesn't get canceled. It's never fun when we have any sort of lockout or postponement of sports, especially for people that talk about sports. Okay, Brad, that's good for the news. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm saving a bunch for the second news.
That works out. Okay, coming up next, we're going to talk about a interesting trade proposal that ESPN threw out for the Lions. Hey, it's officially golf season. If you're like me and Brad, you're looking for a new place to play. Golfers look no further than Apple Mountain in Freeland, where every round comes with a side of scenic perfection. A championship-level course, beautifully maintained, and just the right mix of challenge and fun. And when you've wrapped up your 18, head to the Apple Mountain Restaurant, the perfect place for casual elegance and spectacular views. Whether you're playing for score or just soaking in the atmosphere, Apple Mountain is your place to unwind, recharge, and enjoy the game. Apple Mountain and Freeland, minutes away, but miles from ordinary.
The